Asian bread. Now it's time to meet the ultimate base. This is an incredibly flexible bread recipe. It can be made into loaves, buns, hot dog buns, practically anything. That's why we called it the ultimate basic Asian bread, because it can be used to make so many different styles of Asian bread. A note on this bread, Asian bread is famous for being soft, fluffy, and rich, which makes sense because this kind of modern, originally Western-baked bread is a relatively new introduction to the food market in a lot of places. Older precedents like steamed bread and steamed buns were all very soft. Not to mention that bread in many parts of Asia is treated less like a staple food and more like a sweet or savory treat. So to bolster the texture and taste of this ultimate basic Asian bread, we're going to do something a little different. This recipe uses both Tangzhong and Poolish. If you're not sure what they are, you can check my previous videos on them, but basically Tangzhong is to make the bread much softer, and Poolish makes the bread taste incredibly delicious. So let's get straight into it. As ingredients go for bread, flour matters a lot. Protein content in flour is a good measure of how strong the dough it creates will be. Our bread flour has this amount of protein, 13%, which is just right for us. You can go a little bit lower by using all-purpose flour if you like, but keep in mind that you might end up with a denser bread. The thing about protein is that too much protein and the bread will become way too strong, almost like an artisan bread, while on the other hand, too little protein and the bread will be too weak and unable to rise up. It's a balancing act. Alright, with this flour, we're now going to make the Poolish and Tangzhong in that order. So, first measure out 100 grams of flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of instant yeast. Then add in 100 grams of water, mix together and leave to ferment until it matures, and then you have the finished Poolish. The time it takes for the Poolish to mature is dependent on the temperature and the yeast. So if your room temperature is warmer, then it's going to ferment much faster. And if it's colder, then it's going to probably take longer. For more information, you can check out our previous video. Okay, so we're going to set aside our fermented Poolish now and get to work on our Tangzhong. First, measure 25 grams of flour, then we're going to mix it with 125 grams of water. That's a 1:5 ratio of flour to water, and most of the water will be gelatinized by the flour. Once the flour and water are mixed well, we want to set the mixture onto the stove. We're going to heat the entire thing to 60 to 65 degrees Celsius while continuously stirring. You'll be able to tell when it's done after the entire thing gelatinizes and thickens. We can take it off the stove and place it into a container to cool. And there we have our Tangzhong. For more on its benefits and how to make it properly, you can check out our previous video on it. And when the Tangzhong fully cools, we can use it immediately. Just look at this Poolish. Its gluten structure is absolutely incredible. That's a sign of successful Poolish for sure. Time to finally make the main dough. We have a large stand mixer's bowl here, and to it we'll add the Poolish first. Scrape it in. Then Tangzhong, scrape that in as well. And after those two are in, we'll continue with 375 grams of bread flour, 35 grams of milk powder, 60 grams of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 95 grams of ice water, and we'll prepare 45 grams of butter, but we won't add that in until later. A few notes on the ingredients. Milk powder is a ridiculously convenient way of getting the creamy richness of milk without interfering with the liquid content of the bread. You can replace it with regular milk here, but you'll have to be careful in measuring the liquid content. The milk powder here is also full cream milk powder, so it contains a good amount of proteins, sugars, and milk fats. It goes well with the next ingredient I want to mention as well, butter. Butter is added after the dough has been kneaded a little because fat interferes with gluten development. Now, the benefits of adding fat to a bread recipe are numerous. It softens the bread, helps it stay soft longer, and it makes the bread taste much better. The final ingredient to talk about is ice water. This is our way of managing the dough's temperature. It's been very warm here recently, and the stand mixer will also heat up the dough, so ice water will help keep the temperature lower and prevent the yeast from fermenting too fast, which is a problem because if they ferment the dough too quickly, we might have an over-fermented flat loaf without the complex taste that slow fermentation would have given it. Things like temperature are very dependent on your local climate, so this step should vary according to your situation. We have all the ingredients in there, so it's time to mix them up in our stand mixer. With a dough hook, we're going to mix the dough together on a low speed for a few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. Just let it run until it comes together a little bit. That's when we'll know that the dough has formed a little gluten. So stop the stand mixer and we'll add the butter. It should have softened a bit since we left it out. Then we're going to start the stand mixer again on a low speed at first to let the butter mix in. Then we'll raise it to medium and let it run for about 6 to 7 minutes or until the dough becomes smooth and cohesive. So our dough should be done at this point, and to make sure it has enough gluten development, we're going to give it a window pane test. Basically, if we can stretch it thin enough for us to see light through, then it passes the window pane test. If it rips before that, then it might be unneeded. We're going to lightly oil our hands and a bowl for the dough to rest in. Then just get the dough out of the stand mixer, rounding it into a more even shape. Finally, we're going to move it to the oiled bowl that we just prepared. We also want to coat the surface in oil just to further prevent it from drying up. Cover it and we're going to leave it to bulk ferment for 45 minutes or until it doubles in size. Then it should be done, and we can double check by doing a poke test. Poke the dough lightly, and if it springs back quickly, completely filling in the indentation, then the dough is most definitely not done fermenting and needs more time. Now, if the indentation doesn't come back at all or comes back slowly, then it's probably been fermented enough, which is what we've got here. Flour the work surface lightly, no need for a lot of flour. This dough is quite easy to handle. Turn the dough out onto the floured surface, and we want to divide it. These are our main tools in dividing the dough neatly, our scale and scraper. Now, how many pieces you divide the dough into and how much each weighs is really up to you. This is a flexible recipe. What you want to make it for is your choice. In our case, we're going to make it into 3 bread shapes: the loaf, hot dog bun, and burger bun. Although note that these are just names for the different ways of shaping, you can turn the burger bun into a sweet bun just by adding some filling or topping it with something. It's all up to you. Before shaping though, we'll divide and then pre-shape the dough into more uniform forms. So, take the dough. We want to divide out about 480 grams of dough. This is going to be our loaf. Great, then we'll take this 480 grams and further divide it into 3 pieces, each about 160 grams. We want to pre-shape them a little bit into round balls, so just get some flour if needed and fold them in like this. Then, when they're compact enough, we want to round them with our palms in this way. Do this for all the pieces and we're good for pre-shaping the loaf pieces. Put them to the side and cover them while we work on the others. So with our remaining dough, we're going to divide it into 2. One half is going to become our sausage buns and the other half will be our burger buns. For now, they're both going to follow the exact same steps. We'll divide each half into 2 yet again, so we end up with 4 pieces in total. Again, using the scale to make sure that they weigh about the same amount. And then once they're all equal, we'll shape them into round balls again, the same way we did just now. When all of it is done being pre-shaped, we'll put them in with the previously pre-shaped dough for the loaf. Covering all of them and leaving them to bench rest for 10 to 15 minutes or just until they relax enough for us to be able to work on them. Giving the dough a break is actually quite important in preventing rips and tears in the dough's surface, which can cause problems later. So give them the time they need to relax, and then we can start shaping them. In the meantime, we're going to prepare the baking container for the loaf by lining it with some butter. You can also use any fat or oil. Put that to the side and we'll continue. So it's time to shape the pre-shaped dough. We'll flour the work surface and then we're going to start with making the loaf. Taking one of the 3 larger pieces of the dough and flipping it over onto the surface, we want to flatten it out with a rolling pin. We want to shape it into a long rectangle while also degassing it well. There's no need to roll too hard, just enough to spread it out. Once it's become an oblong shape, we're going to roll it up tightly. Then we're going to reposition our rolled up dough and use the rolling pin to flatten it again. And after that, we just need to roll it up again. This is to build tension and get a very neat little roll of dough. So, in the end, this is what the dough should look like. Tightly rolled and neat with a smooth surface. We want to repeat for the remaining 2 pieces of dough. And then we'll put them into our prepared baking pan. Note that we're putting the pieces of dough in with adjacent pieces having swirls in opposite directions. So if the first one is counterclockwise in swirl, then the one next to it should be clockwise in swirl. That is to let them push up against each other and rise up. Once they're all in, we've completed shaping our loaf, so cover the entire thing, and we just need to let it proof for 45 minutes or until it roughly doubles in size. Now let's get to the burger and hot dog buns. To shape the burger buns, we just want to flatten out and degass the dough piece with our hands, then we'll tuck in the edges of the dough and roll it in our palms into a little ball. That's about it. Quick, easy, and simple. We do this for another piece of dough, and then we're going to shape the hot dog buns. It's a little more complicated than the burger buns. For the hot dog buns, we're going to degass and lengthen the dough with a rolling pin. And then we're going to tightly roll it up. Pinch to seal. And then to make it a little bit longer, we're just going to rock it back and forth with our palms like this. Ta-da! Our hot dog buns are done. For both the burger buns and hot dog buns, we're going to let them proof on top of a baking tray lined with a silicone mat to prevent them from sticking. Make sure to put them down seam side down. They will proof for the same amount of time as the loaf or until they double in size. When all the bread is done proofing, it's time to bake them. So just before baking, we're going to do some glazing with some milk. This is just to get some more color in there and also improve the taste a little bit. We can also glaze it a little bit after it's finished baking with butter. Just makes it much more delicious. We've prepared the oven by preheating it to 180 degrees Celsius. We set the oven to top and bottom heat, and we're going to be baking the bread for about 30 to 35 minutes or until they turn golden brown. And then they're done! These are best eaten on the day they're made. They're fluffy, soft, and delicious. They're perfect for so many things. Okay, so now that they're all done, let's do some tests, shall we? That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching and bye!